my on-time prompt personality, huh? All right. So let's.
That's why I always showed up last to class.
Sorry, I was a good student.
And just a reminder too, we will be keeping an eye on the time, so you have about 8 minutes.
Okay, hold on, let me grab my screen share really quickly and get this started. All right, so I'm Elise Lovejoy. I'm the founder and creator of Express Readers. It's a TK through second grade foundational skills program. I'm gonna start you with this picture of these two cute little girls, and you're gonna wonder why. And it's because I am this chubby little one with the vertically challenged holding their leg up. And the reason I show you this is because Express Readers is a passion project. It was outside of my two quirky little boys. My heart is in the classroom. I have been there a little under 20 years. And in that time, there was a frustration and a need for materials that were made by teachers and an actual program that was made by teachers. So books that kids laughed at, books that kids were engaged with, that were actually decodable. As a teacher, I ran across so many materials where I thought, a teacher did not create this. This is not easy for either teachers or students to navigate. So we are, one of the very important factors about us is that we follow the cognitive science of how kids learn how to read. And by that, I mean, I don't know if you followed Education Weekly or what happened with the civil suits in Los Angeles County, where millions of dollars were won by students who couldn't read. There has been a body of evidence, a very large body of evidence by the National Reading Panel and by the Education Week Research Center about how children learn how to read, and it's still being ignored. One of the pieces is that we really need to get decodable readers into their hands, and we need to help them learn the code and use it in real time, so not just a disjointed phonics program. So with all that jargon, what I basically mean is that as teachers, we've really tried hard to make a program that worked with how our children do need to learn how to read. One of the exciting things that's happening for us is there's an ed report that's going to be published in a month that puts us at the table with all of the big programs. So as a small company of teachers, it's very exciting to be in this place right now. We're dedicated to success. So since 2014, we've been supporting public, charter, and private schools very successfully, and all of our schools are returning year and year again, but every year we get a little better by the amount of teachers that touch our program. We're an open resource, so we work with our teachers. We're constantly changing and improving and enhancing. I shouldn't say changing, but improving and enhancing and adding to based on what our current classrooms need, and we only know that by working with the teachers that we have. I could have shown you a couple quotes by teachers this year, especially during distance learning, who are excited about what we have, but one of the things that keeps us coming back every year is the fact that our kids love the program. Our kids are excited to read and they want to know what the next book is. So I'll show you this cute little quote here. Right now, one of the most important factors in the backslide that could happen with our kids is that reading is extremely critical. It spans across all the curriculum, math, science, history, anything you do, you need to read in order to accept information. And so we think that now is actually the perfect time to make sure that our kids are learning how to read properly. And why would you look at us right now? Well, because we do follow that cognitive science, because we are a group of teachers, we know what our kids need and what might be the best possible way to reach them, whether it's in distance learning or in the classroom. Right now, as was stated earlier too, so many of the admin are overwhelmed by the amount of tasks at hand. I don't want to say overwhelmed, but are pulled in so many different directions. We directly support the teachers. So we work with them virtually on the phone, however they need emails. We are constantly available to our teachers for questions and help. I just got off the phone with an admin that said, thank you for constantly going out of the way above and beyond in order to help us. Her teachers needed some help, so I scheduled a meeting this afternoon. That's what we want to do because we want our teachers and our students to succeed. We are saving teachers time. Teachers are being asked to reinvent the wheel, to take all of their curriculums and put them online and put them into formats in Google Slides and PowerPoints, and we've done that for them. So the second we realized distance learning was going to be where we were at, we immediately started creating, and we're continuing to create, hundreds of lessons that our teachers all have access to. So included in our program right now is access to this immense digital platform that we have with lessons, Google Slides, games, all types of things, and the support that goes along with helping them. We also have online assessments as well as the PowerPoints that go with them, so that we help our teachers through the process of Zoom assessing, which is very complicated when you're dealing with a 5-year-old. For many reasons. Our students also go home with consumables. So one of the things that we're worried about is our children not having things in their hands. So they're just looking at a screen, which we know is not the way that a child learns best. With our consumables, they go home with all the black and white readers. And so our kids not only will have books for those that don't have books, but maybe those that don't have quality reading materials. Again, just like I stated, we make sure that our teachers know how to use all of this. I just wanted to show you a couple pieces so that you could see what I mean by helping our teachers and trying to keep our kids engaged, even though a lot of us right now are using a screen. And you can see how some of this would be used in the classroom as well. As teachers, we can't put our hand on top of our kids' hands. So what are some of the ways that we can show our kids how they need to do something so that they can do it at home without being able to touch what they're doing? We also give them materials that they can cut and sort and pull apart along with the teacher, so they're not just looking at a screen or at someone else doing it. We want their hands to be on it. We have them stand back from the screen, so they're doing all the actions that deal with the sounds. So they're using as many ways as possible to help the kinesthetic learner. I want to make sure I'm looking at my time. We have discussions with kids. So it's not just a one-sided, they're not just watching us. We make sure that they're talking about the sounds and they're talking about vocabulary acquisition. Each one of our practice pages has a lesson that goes with it. So you can turn all types of various parts of our program into an online lesson. And all of our books help with tracking, because again, we can't put our hands on top of our kids. And one of the things that they need most is to learn how to read the book, all the way up through 2nd grade. So one of the questions is, what is this going to cost? Express Reader starts at $9 a student. There's no catch and there's no contract. We as teachers know that if you love it, you will continue to come back to us. And we want to make sure that you love what you're using. And when you sign a contract, a lot of the time, if it doesn't work for you in a year, then you're stuck with it. We also have maintained the fact that we are cost efficient, sorry. And I'm actually going to stop right there and say, I will hope that those of you that we contact after this, we can make a meeting to talk about this more. Yep.
Well done, Elisa. And look, I don't know if you know this, but California was sued for $50 million by 10 kids because we don't teach reading well. And I think we got caught up in STEM and all that stuff and dropped it way down without forgetting the core concepts of reading, and we paid the piper. Well,
and I will say that is one of the first of its kind in California to go through. And I think that once all this that we're dealing with right now, which is more pressing, I think it's going to come back around in the conversation. Like Ed Weekly came out with the entire article on getting reading right. It's going to be a big push.
Well, I mean, I think it's never going to go away, the foundations of reading, but the technical part of it's not easy to do. We don't easily hire reading teachers. We hire general teachers. So great job, very focused, and great leadoff hitter. Good job. Corey, who's up next?
Let's move to Forecast5 Analytics with Bob Manickas.
Oh, man.
Hope I said your last name right.
Yeah, it's definitely close enough, so that'll work. My name's Bob Manickas, and thanks Corey and Tim for having us on. Really our first event with Small School Districts Association, so thrilled to be here. We work with districts of all sizes in California and across the country, so it's nothing really new for us to be working with small school districts, but to be with a great association like this one that we've heard such great things about, it's nice for us to finally kind of jump in. So I will flip my screen on. I've got a slide deck Nothing earth-shattering, but hopefully enough to keep everybody interested here. So 1 second. All right, I think everyone should be seeing my screen now. So we're just going to work through some general information about Forecast5. We are a data analytics company. So really kind of two fundamental ideas, at least, that were explained to me when I started with the company that kind of stuck. So turning data into information as districts, kind of universally and regardless of size, you tend to be data rich and information poor. So how can we make use of these heaps and heaps of data that you all are generating and storing and turn that into usable information? And then kind of part two, and this is where it's really relevant for, I think, smaller districts where you have fewer central office people and are wearing a lot of different hats, to turn process efficiencies into time savings. So all of this is to say, let's be quicker to insight, to support key decisions that are strategic in nature and sustainable in nature. So we have a product suite of 5 tools. I'm just going to work through each of them quickly, kind of highlight fundamentally what do they do and how are they delivering value to school districts. The first one is 5Site, which is our statewide comparable data tool. More on that in a second, but just to kind of set the table for the other tools in the suite. We'll talk about 5Maps. The name probably gives that one away. It's a geovisual or geospatial mapping tool. 5Cast is our business office, financial forecasting, and current year budget analysis tool. 5Lab is our live custom student data analytic engine. And then 5Share is a collaboration tool that we roll out when we're working with a small group of districts around a certain idea. So back to 5Site. Statewide comparable data. So in this tool, we're going out and gathering from CDE a wealth of data, things on staffing and salaries, student performance and accountability, financials, and so just a couple of samples I threw together. Like what you're seeing here on the left is the change in enrollment up 1.5% over 5 years, as compared to the change in staffing up close to 6% over that same span. Trying to see what impact has that had on our class size comparison to other districts that are similar to us. Another idea, looking at CAST scores, at smarter balance and gap in performance between our economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged students over a period of time. And you can see how those two performance indicators have looked. This is another gap analysis. Here's a salary visual looking at the change in salary year over year compared to peers and benefits. So, and this one's on financials. All of this is to say, to make it really easy to compare and benchmark with peer districts, to drive key decisions, to communicate with your stakeholders, kind of where we're at, where we're going, and the why behind that. Next one, I'm going to talk about 5Cast. Business office tool, as I said. Here we're loading in your district's general ledger data, your local financials, to make much more efficient all of the different forecast and budget work that your teams are doing on a daily, weekly, yearly basis. How can we be prepared with multiple scenarios for the good, the bad, and the ugly scenarios, A, B, and C, or bargaining scenarios? Well, 5Cast does that and much, much more. So with that custom mapped local financial data, we can streamline financial reports for your board, for your forecast, for your monthly analysis. This is a side-by-side comparison looking at, what are the next 5 years going to bring in scenarios A, B, and C. Here's some sample monthly reports to streamline and turn a process that might be several hours or even days to get the monthly statements prepared for the board and turn that into an automatic process where you're just downloading a report and presenting it to your stakeholders. This is a cash flow report. So a lot of great stuff that you can do in the 5Cast system. Maybe most importantly, you can project where you're going to finish the year, so you remain nimble in the current year. 5Lab's the next one, live local student data. Our clients right now are using this almost exclusively for e-learning tracking and trying to understand which of their students are engaged, which are at risk of falling behind because they're not engaging, because they're not submitting their information, because maybe they don't have internet access. And so a lot of great ways to pull out of your learning management system a wealth of data to see who's engaging in the e-learning, but also to tie that in to all of your other student data so that you could get to a student profile that will help to encapsulate a lot of other data, their attendance, their discipline, their transcript history, their readiness for next grade. So really bringing in and filling out that full picture of each student, being able to analyze teachers and being able to analyze departments and programs and all of those critical items that you as administrators are going to be doing. 5 Maps will be the last one that I talk about. We're going to skip over 5 Share, the collaboration tool. Not a whole lot to drill into in the 5 Share program, just because it is a custom kind of collaborative thing that we do if we're doing a local survey or something. But 5 Maps has been used in some really cool ways throughout these challenging times. We've had districts use 5 Maps to identify their staff members amidst all these fires that are going on, to say, where do our staff members live? Where do we know the fires are? And who do we need to be calling to make sure that they're okay and that they're still able to get somewhere safe and take care of their families. Other instances we've seen is looking at students with internet connectivity and pulling data from the FCC so that you can track broadband connectivity and to kind of close that digital divide to see where are students that don't have internet access. Maybe they returned a survey, or maybe we know they're in an unserved area, so that we can deliver them that internet access and figure out a solution so that they can be an active learner in these distance learning times. Another thing you might use it for, boundary analysis. You can do some great work with adjusting boundaries and running analysis. Maybe you're opening or closing a school, or just trying to maintain the right student count by grade, program, special ed status, etc. So anything that you want to see on a map, 5 Maps will allow for. And there's an analytics features built in, like you can see here, that can spit right out and give you some great information. So that is my quick overview of each of the Forecast5 products. A couple things about kind of how we operate. We're working with over 2,000 school districts across the country, over 100 in California. All of our pricing is tiered based on district size, district budget size more specifically. So small districts are not paying even a portion of what large districts are doing. And then to make that even more friendly in these tough times, we've done some great deals and kind of incentives for the rest of this current fiscal year to make these tools really available, really low cost for districts that need them to navigate these troubled times. So anyways, I hope to hear from some of you, and thank you again, Tim and Corey, for having Forecast5 on the show today.
Hey, Bob, I've been really impressed with your work. And I think 2 things. One, I think we're heading into some turbulent times financially. I think we're all wealthy as we can get with one-time money. I saw that Sac City went from below 32 million to plus 23, but it's really just CARES money and one-time money. So having data at your fingertips heading into bargaining will be the difference between, I think, great leadership and substandard, because people's feelings get involved otherwise. Secondly, I'd like my email's on my cell phone's on there. And if you could text me, I need to talk to you next day or two about some of the things we're doing around negotiations. So give me a call back. Good stuff. And I like the idea. We used to do 3-year stuff. 5-year, I think, really gives you an in-depth look of and really it's a great leadership tool to have for your board and for your community.
Sure. Thank you, Tim, for that great feedback.
Yeah. Hey, Corey, who's up next? Who's the third hitter in the hole? Who's the Willie Mays on our team?
That will be Nicole Smith from ClassLink.
What? She dropped the mic the last time I saw her.
Oh, I'm going out on a limb here, so I'm going to do the forbidden video, but I tested it like crazy last night with family members. I signed up for a Zoom account. I tested it out. I optimized my screen. So here's hoping, but it's just going to be a portion of it. So I hope if it doesn't work, I can share it for the next few minutes. All right.
Jeff's
So
got his kid right there on the little holster. So kids love videos.
I saw that, right? That's so awesome. So are you guys seeing my screen now? It says remote learning made possible.
Yep.
Alrighty. So only because I feel like teachers, superintendents, students can say it a lot better in a much more succinct fashion than I can. So we're going to go ahead and give this a shot. So this is something that we put together this spring to highlight how some of our partner districts were using ClassLink. We are a single sign-on platform. We handle usage analytics, user account provisioning, rostering. So I wanted to highlight some of the ways that it's being used in these increased times of remote learning. So I'm going to go ahead and push play and make this big. And here's hoping it works.
To get remote learning up and running had to happen within 5 days.
You're thinking of a million things at once.
Then you start to wonder, okay, how's this going to trickle down to me, to my kids, to my classroom?
This wasn't going to be a review period. This was going to be about us continuing learning for students and making sure that new learning was embedded in the tasks assigned.
We took stock of several of the tools that we had at our disposal. ClassLink was unbelievably helpful throughout this whole entire process.
ClassLink is our single sign-on and single source platform. So going into remote learning was an easy transition.
Students didn't need to remember multiple passwords. It was all right there, and I think that made a big difference for our students, but also for our staff.
Log into ClassLink. That was always step one.
Takes about 5 seconds to put on your lunch number and your password, and it just takes you there in a snap.
It takes all the pitfalls out of the way that used to be the biggest problem about e-learning.
They automatically go to ClassLink. They automatically click on every app we need for the day.
That has been the thing that parents have said the most, you know, that they're grateful everything is right there. They don't have to go searching.
The principals and the teachers continue to use the analytic tool built into ClassLink itself to monitor student engagement, how much time they were spending in an application, and how many times they logged into it.
They can target the few people that are having real issues and spend the remediation time with them rather than kids that are doing okay.
And using My Backpack allowed the students to access the resources which they needed at home in a quick manner.
In one neat framework, we were able to share with the community, with our Board of Education, with our staff, that this was working.
And all that was made possible by a single sign-on.
They loved the information that was there, how it was presented, how easy it was to understand.
We're very happy that we made the decision to go to a single sign-on model, to partner with ClassLink, and this pandemic really showed us the importance of that partnership.
All right. Were you guys able to hear that okay, or was that horrible?
No, that was good.
That was really easy.
God bless whoever it was, Corey, that shared with us to optimize your screen for video sharing. So
yeah,
I think
it definitely made a big difference. That was great.
That's the key. All right, so a few other things that I want to talk about, just more specifically about what is ClassLink. I also have a picture to pimp out. She might disown me if she knew it, but this is my daughter. She is a junior in high school, and this was a text that she sent me back in spring. So she was working in her AP Chem class. It was a class that she's really had been struggling in. She was right on the cusp of a B and an A, and she was hoping to just knock this lab out of the park and be able to push her grade up to an A. And she had to work with a friend who was tutoring her, getting everything up and ready, and she could not submit her assignment in time. And she tried for 2 hours, and she was having glitches with the assignment. She couldn't get it in. And she called me crying because it was submitted after hours and she ended up getting a 0 on the lab. Not only did she not get an A, she dropped from a B to a C in that class. And it was the first time that I had seen on a personal basis how important it is to have access and to be able to get into the tools that we are requiring our students and teachers to use. And it was unfortunate. She ended up with a C in that class. There was nothing that we could do about that. So like I said, kind of on a personal level, it was the first time that I had really seen it, even though I've been in this industry for 21 years. So why ClassLink? ClassLink manages the life cycle of all the digital resources that are used at a district. And there's a lot of pieces that go into play. Single sign-on is just the front end. There's so many things behind the scenes that IT needs to do. And there's been a lot of smaller districts that I've talked to lately where it's the superintendent, AKA principal, AKA bus driver, AKA history teacher, who is having to go in and manually roster all the students for the different resources. So how important it is to streamline that user account provisioning and that access and to make sure that it is being done in a secure fashion. This map right here is a map of K-12 school districts data hacks for this year. And you can see California, we definitely have our share going on. And a lot of this was brought about with this unexpected push to remote learning and teachers being excited or even scrambling, looking for resources that they could use with their students and quickly just pushing those out without having those vetted by the school district. So it's so important that we are managing that and that we are staying on top and we're not releasing personable identifiable information for our students and staff. This number right here, this is the average number of apps that ClassLink is managing for school districts under the size of 5,000 students. So just stop and think about that for a sec. 142 apps is the nationwide average for ClassLink partners under 5,000 students. So that is a lot of streamlining and things that we need to be able to make sure that we can bring about. And the other challenge that you're seeing is there's a lot of resources that are being used that studies are showing that not even 30% of those licenses are being used and accessed. So being able to see exactly what's being used, how much time is being spent in those resources, is it making a difference? So being able to pull in all those different pieces. So again, that's what we do at ClassLink. We have the single sign-on. We also have something that's very unique that provides access file and sharing without VPN technology for those shared file folders that typically someone would have to be right at the district within the boundaries to be able to use. And then anything that is access to that is what powers our usage analytics, and that can be seen on a teacher level, individual level, of course. Parents can see what their students are doing, and then all the way up to a building level or district level. And these are kind of those behind the scenes things that I had mentioned. And just to give you a little info about ClassLink, we've been around actually 22 years now. We are based in Clifton, New Jersey. We are in all 50 states. We have 3 statewide deployments. We are in 17 countries. We are the most heavily utilized single sign-on and rostering resource that is out there today. And just like others have shared, it doesn't matter the size of the district, whether you are 85 students or 300,000 plus. We work with them all and we all have the same problems, just on a different scale. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more specifically about how we can work with you and partner with you, this is my contact information. I'm the Vice President of Instructional Technology here on the West. I partner with a lady by the name of Jill Koss, who's our regional manager, to support California. And we do have some special pricing worked out for SSDA members. Oops, that's my timer. So want to make sure that we also are being mindful of the hurdles that you guys have when it comes to financing and budget. So with that, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to continuing discussions with you guys. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Nicole. And again, thank you for working on that site license waiver. That really helps our smalls out tremendously, and we're very thankful for that. And, you know, so I think some of you know I don't like the word pivot. So we can't use it around me because it used to be we tailor make things for, you know, now we're saying pivot. So every time someone says pivot, I lose money to a lady who owns Pivot Charter School. So I was losing 70, but I'm down to about 30 right now to her. So don't say pivot in your presentation, say tailor made. Hey, Corey, who's up next? Nicole, great job as usual. Who's up next?
Let's do MeTEOR Education with Gina and Kevin.
Great. All right.
Thank you, everybody. Great presentation so far. My name is Gina LeBeer. I'm with MeTEOR Education, and we help connect the dots with student engagement, with methods, tools, and then connecting it with the whole environment. I live here locally in Sacramento, and I'd like to introduce Kevin Baird. He is our Chief Strategy Officer and also co-author of a book called Whole. And it's what teachers need to help students thrive. So I'm going to kick it off to Kevin.
All right. Hey, fantastic and great presentations. And thank you for inviting us. So I am Kevin Baird. I work with MeTEOR Education and also chair the nonprofit Center for College and Career Readiness. And I'm going to talk today about Rhythm, which is a digital platform to help us measure social emotional readiness to engage. We all know as educators that learning is centered on the daily story of the classroom, right? We are literally all storytellers. Every single day, we create a new story, a new movie for our students. And our stories are unique. If you look at the research on small school districts, you know that we tend to be closer to our communities, that our stories literally resonate more closely with our students. We tend to have a greater ability to see into the needs of our communities and our students. However, each one of us as an educator, we've all had these days where no matter how much differentiated instruction we did, no matter how much data we had, we just couldn't get through, whether the student was sleepy or the student was acting out, or we just didn't know why the movie we were creating in that moment was not a hit maker for us. There has never been a more critical time, in my view, for understanding why. Why aren't my students engaged? Who are the students who are engaged and who are the students who are not? For the students who are not in my classroom, what do I need to know that I can't know because I'm not seeing them walk into the classroom today? Perhaps those students are hungry at home. Perhaps I have a child who is not engaged because they aren't feeling well, or in these times, because someone in their home isn't feeling well and they actually have something called sickness behavior where they're mimicking that. Perhaps I have students who their brain space is being filled with disagreement or conflict with a parent, with a sibling, with a peer, with a teacher. Or perhaps something else is going on. Maybe I have a student who is showing up and they are literally exhausted. Maybe their parents have been fighting all night. Or perhaps they have been sneaking monster drinks out of the refrigerator and they are literally out of control. And that could be my child, to be honest. I want you to imagine a social emotional X-ray that allows us to look into every single child and understand some of those pieces that are going on inside of them, why they might not be engaging. That's literally what Rhythm is. Rhythm is an online tool. It's really simple. It's already rostered, one click. You don't have to log in again. And it takes about a minute for a clinical emoji-based check-in. I just showed you some of the screens. That check-in is focused on the student's social emotional readiness to engage. And even though it's designed for students, we actually have some districts who use it with all of the adults in the building, the teachers, the counselors, you name it. It can be used once a day or multiple times a day. Most districts use it as attendance at the beginning of a class and then making sure that it's used at least 2 or 3 times during the day, for instance, after lunch. It's giving us in the moment data. So we can not only differentiate instruction, we can literally differentiate our connection with students that need it. And we can differentiate the student's experience as needed. For those students for whom we want to kind of regulate right away, there are optional 1 to 2 minute activities to get into Rhythm. The idea is really simple. We want to remove the brick wall that we run into as educators when we have students and we're just not quite sure what's going on with them, or the invisible barrier to learning that can be trauma, that can be hunger, that can be social emotional disruption. Rhythm gives real-time information so that I know perhaps my students really need to collaborate today. That's kind of their mood, that's their tempo. I might have a student who needs an individual counseling session, someone I need to check in with, whether it's on Zoom or in person. Maybe my kids are really low E today and I need to get them to do jumping jacks, or I have a few that need to walk around the room to get their energy flowing. Or I might have a student who would be better off working independently today because that's where they are on the inside. Rhythm helps me understand that. It also gives me real-time alerts. This is a real-life example where actually an employee had their child using Rhythm, and he wrote, "I feel like my brain is going to pop open." And this alert went immediately to the person set up as a teacher, and it actually kept coming out until the alert was cleared to say, you might want to check in on this student. This is a way that we can identify problems before they become tragedies. There are customizable dashboards. This is actually a dashboard for the state of Alabama, so that I can literally see where the hunger is located. I could do this by classroom. I could do it by zip code. I could do it by different subgroup of student. And for those students who are acting out, those students who are disruptive or causing a problem, oftentimes I don't have a lot I can do. I can separate them from the class. I can send them to the office. But Rhythm gives us an opportunity to keep them in class by saying, hey, Gina, why don't you do a Rhythm activity? Rhythm is filled with these little 1 to 2 minute activities that, for instance, in this example, helps me to calm myself, helps me to lead into mindfulness. This is actually a picture of the school I went to. That dates me. It's a Dry Creek Schoolhouse in Converse County School District #1 in Wyoming. When I was going to this school, by the way, all grades together, I could have never imagined that my children would be going to school in the living room schoolhouse in my house, but that's true. And because of that remoteness for many of our students, we are at an even greater disadvantage to understand what they need from us emotionally. Rhythm allows every teacher to come alongside every student, whether they're on the couch or they're in the classroom, to understand what they need to connect, first emotionally and then intellectually. Like Rhythm, that's what MeTEOR Education does. MeTEOR comes alongside our school districts to help us understand the perfect environment. This is actually a picture of a physically distanced environment, or even thinking about how I create continuous air quality in that environment. So I'm literally getting rid of allergens or even viruses. With Rhythm, Rhythm is coming alongside our Small School Districts Association. We have site and student-based pricing, and actually through a special arrangement with the association, literally about a quarter of the regular price. And that includes remote professional learning, and it is CARES Act appropriate. You know, I've come to know in my career the man in the left-hand corner, Jim Lovell. He is a captain of the Apollo 13 mission. And if you watch that movie, there's this great quote that says, "Failure's not an option." But what he would say is that minds matter the most. And I think this is really our moment to reach out and problem solve with the expert team. My colleague, Kim Bolster at MeTEOR Education, can get you a demo, a deeper dive, or references, because just 1 minute could be the difference between boredom or finding my passion, or even more importantly, trauma that we don't see. We want to help that child through so that they are successful. Thank you very much. I hope you'll connect with Kim. I don't think there's a better time to help our students get into Rhythm.
I was dialed in. I mean, yeah, I think as we work with all these districts that are dealing with the fires, probably on the phone at least 3 times a day, the lack of being able to be face-to-face and deal with emotions and have that hug or see that teacher in a classroom when it's not there, I think that's a longer-term impact. And I don't see social emotional learning issues dissipating in our small school districts because they just don't have the plethora of support we see elsewhere. So very well done. I like your style. I like that product. That's good stuff. And thanks for helping out our districts with pricing and everything. Great stuff.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Corey.
Tim. That leaves Colin with ThinkLaw.
Colin, I have to say something before you get on.
All right.
Is he there? Where is he? Oh, there he is. I don't watch America's Got Talent, but someone texted me last night that you used to be kind of active in the charter world, and I went, man, that guy reminded me of the guy doing the spoken word on America's Got Talent. So you've got that same style. So looking forward to hearing what you got today.
All right.
To inspire us again.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So what I'm talking about today is new work that we're doing with ThinkLaw that's called the Educational Equity Equation. And the whole idea here is that at ThinkLaw, what we do is we help educators make critical thinking much more accessible to students through 3 different avenues. One, we've got standards-aligned supplemental digital curriculum that's based off of real-life legal cases in upper grades, and that's based off of fairy tales and nursery rhymes in lower grades, because there are just so many shady characters in children's stories. And we also do a lot of professional development work with our teachers to make it much more practical of how to make equity happen through giving more access in their day-to-day instruction using their existing curriculum. Last but not least, we do work with parents. We help teachers facilitate these hackathons for social change where kids are actually solving the problems in their own communities. So I am excited to kind of dig in this with you and share some ideas and thoughts around why our equity focus has really come about. Across this country, we've had this moment of reckoning around racial injustice. Even communities that are not really very racially diverse have started to recognize, man, we've got to actually make sure our kids are prepared in any case to be able to lead and thrive in a world that is increasingly diverse. However, what are we doing beyond these statements? What are we doing besides these committees that are being formed and these proclamations that are being made to actually make this hit the classroom? And I want to do a quick game of Family Feud with those of you on here. You can feel free to drop in a chat, and the vendors, educators, superintendents, anybody could go ahead and chime in here. If we were to play Family Feud, don't worry, no one's going to get an X, no one's going to embarrass their family and bring shame. Why doesn't it work? Why is it that so many of these equity initiatives get stuck in this cabinet level thing or this one and done sort of workshop for diversity training? Like, what has been your experience as to why it doesn't work? As those answers are coming in, I can share some of the things that I've heard. I've heard that it just becomes this buzzword that no one actually really understands. No one has actually really defined what that means. And a lot of times when we talk about equity, we're not getting into the complexities of it. We're not getting into the idea that equity might mean something very different for a community serving a large number of migrant students. Equity might mean something very different in a community that is essentially 100% white, but super rural. Because if we're not talking about equity within the context of something that I like to call the poverty of possibility, in that I was a child who grew up on free and reduced lunch, but I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I took the train to school with people that were on their way to Wall Street. In certain communities, you're not getting that level of access. This idea of being able to start younger with this work is also a piece of it. So thanks for bringing in those ideas. As we start to look at this, the way that we started to tackle this problem initially was to think about the different things that we offer. So I recently published a book, Thinking Like a Lawyer, that breaks down these strategies into really concrete sort of things that districts can use to formulate their PLC, professional learning communities around. We've got this curriculum that's super engaging and intense. We've got this virtual PD that's really flexible and customizable to people's needs. But when I started digging deeper, I started realizing we've got to be a little bit clearer about how this partnership is all coming together. So with the educational equity equation, there's those 3 components: the educator-facing work, which are these 3 workshops that we offer, the curriculum that we have as a supplement, the tools that we use to help educators use their own curriculum. I don't care what they use, but give them curriculum agnostic tools to start to modify their own curriculum, and then also do this community work where our parents and our kids themselves are being a part of this change. Why am I doing this? Because when I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, as a kid who was on free and reduced lunch, as a kid who was the first generation born in this country, because my family's all from Barbados, as a kid whose dad was incarcerated for selling drugs, And as a kid who was a loudmouth, who was always getting in trouble, somehow, some way, I was identified to be a part of this gifted and talented program. And you might look at this picture and see, okay, clearly my 90s sweater game is on point. Clearly my mom put me in the highest high waters in human history. I don't know when the flood was coming, but I was definitely ready for that flood when it came. But what you don't know about this picture is that the average elementary school classroom size in PS208 had 30 plus kids. Mine only had 24. Dig deeper, this was 4th/5th grade. They only found 12 kids per grade level to give access to this transformational program. And when I say it's transformational, the same behavior that I used to get in trouble for was now required. Defiance became curiosity. And I started realizing at this moment that although brilliance is distributed equally, opportunity is not. And when I talk about opportunity, I want to be clear with you. As a classroom educator, as a math teacher, I was always so gung-ho about academic success as the pathway to equity. And I would obsess around the idea like, we're not doing well enough, and I got to make sure my kids are ready for these tests. And I'm sick of the achievement gap, opportunity gap, whatever you want to call it, so much that I even had this huge rant in the '74 that I wrote about this whole topic, about the outcome being the equity, but then I stopped. I stopped and I recognized that my mom came here in the '70s and he told her, you got to work twice as hard to get half as far. And then when she raised me, she taught me I have to work twice as hard to get half as far. At what point are we going to stop telling kids in poverty? Are we going to stop telling kids of color? Are we going to stop telling women that you got to work twice as hard to get half as far? So when I started digging deeper, I realized we got to go beyond just the typical one and done diversity workshop. What does it look like to start digging in? It goes into this idea that we shouldn't have a school that's about high achievement and another school that's all about really pushing the type of critical thinking that you would see at a boarding school, at an elite institution. And when I was in law school, I realized thinking like a lawyer was a concrete way to get there. So if I just look at this example really quickly, as a math teacher, I can do percent change, or I can think about kids and what they need to do to survive, and what price gouging looks like, and how medication is really important to survive, and how I can look at what this one company did. Well, they jacked up the prices. How did they jack it up? What were the consequences? Well, you look into that. Now I'm more compelled to do this work. Now as I'm doing this work, I'm not just doing it. I'm prepping the senator for questions she would ask for the hearing. I'm not just prepping the senator, I'm coming up with bar graphs of what this senator is gonna need to see and visualize the shenanigans. And when I start looking at that, that's our math labs curriculum for middle school. And we have curriculum for different grade levels, and that's very easy to use, less than 5 minutes of prep time per lesson for teachers to roll this in. We do new lessons based off of current events, holiday themes, so it's really exciting for them to use. And we also include a book study to have our educators have more resources to dig in deeper with the constructs that we give them. And when I say constructs, I'm talking about curriculum agnostic tools. So whether they're looking at poetry differently, or instead of doing a regular math problem, they do a problem where both things are wrong and they ask which one is more right. And we start digging into this idea that even on a CASP, we can build in its critical thinking by building in more mistake analysis, where kids can develop their own multiple choice questions, where we can look at social justice infused into our instruction, even in early elementary, changing the way we ask questions. Maybe the big bad wolf wasn't actually that bad. He just was trying to eat. When we start doing this, understand that in the middle of the workshop, they're already doing the work. They're already doing this. This is not some sort of pie in the sky construct. So at the end of the day, what we do is really comprehensive. We try to not beat people over the head with equity. We try to make it practical and very much a resource that they can use in the classroom. We also would send it to parents and community-facing work that kids can do outside of the classroom. And we recognize from our time at SSDA in the past, and working with a lot of small rurals around the country, we've got to make it work for folks. So it's not one size fits all. We offer special pricing that includes this entire package for $3,500 for any SSDA members. And on top of that, I want to make sure we understand that we can start right now. So even if you can't do all these pieces because there's too much going on, what we need right now is we need critical thinking and distance learning. So if you are interested in partnering with us to try out what this could look like to do this in distance learning, you can request a quote on our website. And if you do that by October 2nd, we'll give you the $500 deal for that. And if you go through our whole package, we actually would include this for free to already get your people acclimated on how to do this better in a distance learning construct. Thank you so much. Please do stay in touch. My email is colin@thinklaw.us if you have any questions about this. And we would love, love, love to see how we can help make the educational equity equation real in your district as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right, fantastic, Colin. Thank you so much for that. Tim had to step out, so he kind of threw it over to me. But again, Colin, thank you for your time and your enthusiasm there. That was fantastic. Really appreciate that. Just to double check, Corey, those were all 5 of our presenters today?
Yeah, it was everybody.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Guys, thank you so much. Each of you, let's see, Elise, thank you. Bob, Gina, Colin, Nicole, really appreciate your time today. Really appreciate you being willing to spend this hour and share with us about the great things your companies are doing and supporting education here in California. So thank you very much. Also, a huge thank you to those of you that were able to log on, be a part of this. Feel free to share this information, share this out with your colleagues. I think we all are able to walk away with some good information and be able to that we can share out with those that we work with. Again, thank you for everything you do for SSDA and partnering with us. I know that the work that you do certainly helps the work that we do. So thank you very much for that partnership that we have and the willingness to work with small school districts here in the state of California. So thank you very much. Anything else, Corey?
Nope, I think we are good. You said it all. Thank you again so much for everything you guys do for SSDA and small school districts. And thank you to all the education leaders who joined us today.
All right. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.